Hi friends, I'm Scott Giles and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to spirituality, hypnotic coaching, and the hypnotic arts and sciences in general. If you'd like to know more about my professional work or sign up for my free e-newsletter, Power Lines, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. So today I want to talk about spiritual frauds. These are people who claim a religious or spiritual authority without actually having much to back that up. Now, I do not intend to trash talk the sincere spiritual beliefs that people may have. One of the things that in fact encourages me about our world today is that more people do seem to be seeking a deeper wisdom in their lives, and I support and I celebrate that. The spiritual frauds I'm talking about today are those people who create the outward appearance of spiritual loyalty in order to take advantage of someone else. When I was a parish minister of a congregation that owned a national landmark building, Frank Lloyd Wright's Unity Temple, we would often get approached by such people who wanted to use our building's landmark status as a way to boost the perceived legitimacy of their claims. So we'd get people who were ordained online by the Universal Life Church, a denomination that will ordain anyone with no training or screening required. Seriously, once as a demonstration, I got one of my cats, Freya, ordained by them. These people wanted to perform weddings or teach classes at Unity Temple so they could advertise themselves using the landmark standing of our building as if it were some sort of credential or endorsement. In almost all cases, it appeared to be part of a money-making plan. And I would occasionally have other people who decided that they had a spiritual revelation and then were upset because the church would not agree to support their various claims and demands. People who would go off to, say, a weekend retreat and come back and announce that henceforth they want to be known as High Priestess Sparklebottom or Lord Sage Eats-A-Lot, and wanted to rent the temple so they could perform weddings in the nude or what have you. It would occasionally get exhausting, especially when it turned out, as it almost always did, that High Priestess Sparklebottom and Lord Sage Eats-A-Lot mostly wanted followers who would pay them love offerings. You get the picture. But the phenomena of the spiritual fraud is more serious than these somewhat silly, although true, examples. I should probably mention that I've changed the names to protect the guilty. Take the mainstream clergy. Despite what you may have read in the press, a lot of denominations have trouble with misbehaving clergy. It's not just the Catholics. Clergy who are sexually abusive, financially abusive, and so on. Surely one of the most egregious examples of the spiritual fraud is the clergy person who uses their role to take advantage of others. Then there are cultic leaders such as Jim Jones of People's Temple or Rajneesh, the guru who required his followers to live in poverty but drove around in a fleet of Rolls Royces himself. There are many such examples. Now, in my opinion, the most effective way to spot a spiritual fraud is not to listen to what they say or claim, because sometimes that can be pretty good, but you'll probably discover it was plagiarized. Don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do. As a wise person once said, "Don't tell me what you believe. Show me what you do, and I'll tell you what you believe. This saying has been a wise touchstone for me for many years. And I'm sure you've seen the equivalent in any of the organizations you may belong to, secular or religious. The person who loudly proclaims their devotion to the values of the organization, whether those are civil liberties or environmental protection or what have you, but who immediately cuts their financial support or vanishes the first time they don't get their way or lose a Democratic vote. They show themselves to be not just a hypocrite, but a spiritual fraud because they professed to values larger than themselves, which they were willing to promptly discard when inconvenient. You probably know people in your own life who claim to embrace some theological, philosophical, or spiritual path, but instead of using that path to shape themselves in order to become a better version of themselves, they use it as a weapon to try to force other people to do what they want. And I really hate that whenever I encounter it, mostly because it was something similar to what I grew up with. The only effective response I have ever found to someone who claims a spiritual, philosophical, theological, or even political authority is to watch their behavior. Until I've had a chance to do that, I'll basically suspend any opinion, but I will watch. And I apply this to myself as well, and I recommend that practice to you. A big part of my personal spiritual method is journal keeping. As I go through my day, I am continually reflecting on what is happening and my feelings about what's happening. I was taught by one of my spiritual directors to use this tool for what he called the examine. And what's meant by that is at day's end, you look over your day, you examine it with a self-critical eye. Now, the idea isn't to beat yourself up, but it's to ask yourself if you really lived up to your values that day. If you did, give yourself a pat on the back. If you didn't, you resolve to do better. And I usually will write a note to myself for the next day about that. I may make mistakes. You don't believe that? Just ask my wife. But I try not to be a hypocrite. Spiritual frauds are nasty. Don't be one. And the way you find them in your environment, watch what they do. Pay attention to that, not to what they say. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject, and I'd like to invite you to join me. It does help me if you let others know about my work and my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, if I can be of help to you, don't hesitate to reach out. But for now, have a great week.